From the studios of Foxboro Cable Access, located in the center of Foxborough, Massachusetts, you are watching Around Foxborough.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Around Foxborough. I am your host, Jared Craig, and I'm joined by these three lovely ladies today. We're going to talk about the Foxboro Classical Ballet Academy's production of The Nutcracker, happening at the Marilyn Rodman Performing Arts Center. So I have with me Eve O'Reilly-Ketty, who is the founder and director of the teacher extraordinaire of the Nutcracker. I have Clara Duplessis, who is playing Clara in the Nutcracker. And then I have Kaini Duplessis, who is dressed as the Sugar Plum Fairy, but I understand you're playing Snowflake and Hooply.
And she's also one of our instructors.
Oh, you're an instructor too. Well, you guys are all so multifaceted. So thanks for being here. I'm so excited to see this production this year. I understand that you've been doing it for a while. Eve, do you mind talking to us a little bit about how it started and
Sure.
why you really wanted to put this production on?
Sure. Yeah. This year is the 5th or 6th, depending on how you want to look at it, production. We've been doing it at the Marilyn Rodman Center for the last 5 years, and we didn't do it in 2020. Before that, we did it at a couple of high schools, something like that. But the reason, I had started the school about 10 years ago, and my sister and I were at Boston Ballet growing up, and we all did the Nutcracker every year. And this was like in the 70s, mid-70s, early 70s. And as we got more and more students, we said, hey, we should put on the Nutcracker, right? And so one of our friends simultaneously said, I'm going to retire. I have all the costumes if you want to buy them. So that helped out a lot. But what we did was this is the absolute, that's a new one. That's not 30 years old. That's a new one. That's a new one. But, so we said, we didn't want to go and re-choreograph the whole thing or anything, but this is the original version that was done by the Boston Ballet at the inception of the Boston Ballet Company. So this is back in the 60s and the 70s. Absolutely, the dances are 99% similar. Some we had to re-choreograph because there were some copyright issues with George Balanchine and things like that.
Oh, sure.
But it's such a joy for my sister and I to be doing it because we did a lot of those parts and we have a lot of laughs doing it because, remember the time 50 years ago. So that's why we do this version.
So you and your sister danced in the Nutcracker at Boston Ballet.
Many years.
In the 70s. And now you've brought it to Foxborough through your ballet academy. Yeah,
it was, I have another career as a financial advisor. And when I left college, I really had nothing to do with, once I went into college, I never really danced again. But for 30 years, I was like, I really should do this. And I think I had a school for a little while when I was in college. I'd take the train home on Saturdays. But then it got to be where it got to be too much in my head. And I said, I keep thinking of how many generations of kids could have had these ballet lessons by professional level teachers, some of these kids. So when I first started the school, I started over in Judy's building. It was a little 8x10 studio. And slowly kids would start to come, and even kids that were at Boston Ballet were like, this training is just as good as Boston Ballet, we're gonna come here.
Why drive all the way in?
Yeah, so we did that, and then we needed a bigger space, and we went to a bigger space at Judy's. And then one day my sister was driving by the Knights of Columbus Hall, and at this time the rooms were pretty packed. And the dances were getting really good. And so my sister drove by the Knights of Columbus Hall and said, hey, the Knights of Columbus Hall is for sale. You got to go buy it. I was like, okay, all right. So I did, and we're still there. So we have a great studio space. And during the years, some of the kids that started at the beginning some of them got so good, they would go to New York City over the summers. They'd go to New York City Ballet or American Ballet Theater. So these were really greatly trained kids. And then a lot of them graduated, some left during the pandemic. So we're kind of like in a rebuilding phase again, but we're still in the same spot and having a ball.
Because, so I'm newer to town, I've only been here for about 10 years. The Knights of Columbus Hall is where you are now, which is right across
from St. Mary's.
From St. Mary's Church. You're on the corner of Church Street and Carpenter Street.
Because you can't really find space where you have a big studio like that. And our studio is like 30 feet by 40 feet, it's huge. And they just don't make them anymore without poles in them or something like that. So
exactly.
There was really, once I saw it, there was no option but to get the building. And so here we are.
It's a really cool building.
Yeah.
And so are all of your rehearsals there? Are they at the theater?
Yeah, well, actually it's funny because the studios, coincidentally, is almost the same size as the stage at Marilyn Rodman. And so we have everything marked out with masking tape, where the wings are. So since we've done that, so most of the rehearsals are there because we have the stage right there, right? But now we're renting it out to other groups that also perform at Marilyn Rodman, because now we have the stage in our studio, so they can use our space too.
Great. Yeah. So before I get to, I want to hear from you two. What's the story of the Nutcracker? I'd love to know what the dates are, just so we can get that out there, and I'll ask you again at the end.
This year, last year we had 3 performances. This year we're going to have 4 performances.
Moving on up.
So it's 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock on Saturday and Sunday, the 16th and the 17th of December. Perfect. So it's a little later than most other. I mean, Boston Ballet obviously goes the entire month of December, but a lot of the local ones from, there's some around, they're really early in the month or even in the late November. So we're very late. We're just a week before Christmas. But it really works because I have found, I would go somewhere to get like the programs printed, and she'd say, "Oh, I went to your Nutcracker last year. We're going to go again." I'm like, how does this person know about it? Because in my mind, I'm thinking the only people that are going to buy tickets are people who have kids in it, right? But now it's become a thing where people actually really go there, and it's like a tradition.
Oh, so obviously I'm on the board of the theater with you. I'm just so proud that we have this culture, this art in our town.
It's amazing.
We have a Nutcracker in Foxborough.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So I want to talk to you two for a moment too. This is, again, Clara and Kiney. Could you tell us the story of the Nutcracker and why is it an important Christmas story?
So the story of the Nutcracker is a little girl, Clara. She has like a party at her house, and she receives a Nutcracker for a gift. And when she goes to sleep, her magical uncle makes
Dr. Drosselmeyer.
Dr. Drosselmeyer makes her shrink down to be the size of a doll. So the Nutcracker kind of comes to life and defeats the evil mice and the mouse queen. And then he brings Clara to the land of sweets, which is the second act.
And then
Anything?
in the second,
Feel free to jump in.
act, Clara just gets to watch all like the sweets, and they're all named after little like candies. And Clara gets to watch them all dance and perform, and then she goes back to, after the second act, to her normal land.
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you, for all the years I've been participating in a Nutcracker, it took me like 50 years to figure out it was Clara's dream. I mean, she's dreaming all this. I was like, oh, she just became, she became a doll. I mean, it was just, and it was like, it doesn't make any sense. But then I started thinking about it. The scene where she falls asleep, and then the mice all come to life, and the soldiers, they're all toys that were like under the tree. So, and then in the second act, it probably was like all the food she ate at the party, right? Like marzipan, so it's like, oh yeah, I mean, snowflake, why were the snowflakes dancing? Because she's dreaming of dancing, so it's a dream, and then she wakes up and goes home.
Well, that's I'm not trying to pounce on you, but that's a beautiful thing about art too, is it can be interpreted so many different ways, and if you're taking it literally, and then 20 years later, you rethink about it, oh, that's not literal, it's figurative, or vice versa. I mean, that's the beautiful thing, and so hopefully you two are helping make those memories for kids that are going to see that this year, and 20 years from now might be like, oh my gosh.
You never forget. You do never forget.
I do believe we have a clip, so since we've just talked a little bit about the story, I'd love for us to take a pause and watch a little clip now. Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing all of that with us. Clara, I'd love to know what it means for you to be playing Clara. I don't know if that's who you're named after or not, but you have the same name. So is this like a dream role you've always had since you started dancing? Or can you tell us a little bit about?
I started dancing when I was 3, and I've been dancing ever since. And when I started the Nutcracker, you kind of work your way up in the roles. And every girl's hope is to be Clara, but only 1 or 2 girls get to be it every year. So it's so great and amazing to be able to be the Clara this year.
Yeah.
And are you the Clara for all 4
Yes,
performances?
I'm Clara for all 4.
Congratulations.
And Kaimi actually has been Clara
I was
too.
Clara a
You've been
couple
Clara?
years ago. Yeah.
And what did that mean to you? Same kind of thing?
It's
Was it a
amazing. It's
dream?
like an honor to be Clara, and like it's so exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I was Clara at Boston Ballet in 1967. So you never forget.
So we've got 3 Claras.
There were 3 Claras.
Yes.
Yeah, my sister was Clara too.
Well, call me if you need a rat king. So
Yeah.
someday.
Actually, she's playing the
I'm
Mouse
Mouse
Queen.
Queen.
Oh, you there?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, perfect. So why does this story persist? Why? I mean, it was written, we were talking before, at some point in the 1800s, right? Why is it still being performed every year? What makes it such a
Wow.
special Christmas tale, do you think?
I think it's just like so iconic, and like everyone knows the Nutcracker, especially if you're a dancer. And then everyone's like, oh, the Nutcracker, and just like a magical like performance, and you get to like have all the classic roles and the classic music too. So it's just like everyone should know it, and everyone loves it.
Well, you know, and what most people don't know, and I just learned it 10 years ago when I was working on the program, it's based on a book. So I had no idea. It's called The Nutcracker and the Mouse King or something like that.
Oh,
Yeah, so
cool.
it's from a book, and we were just discussing it. We were thinking it was probably first done in Russia, probably in the 1800s. And it's just so strictly Christmas. There's a Christmas tree on the stage, you know?
Yeah.
So a lot of companies take it over, but people have done their own twist on it too.
Sure.
But this is ours is traditional as you can get.
And so I want to talk to you a little bit about that because I was reading about your academy, the Foxboro Classical Ballet Academy, and it seems that you put a real emphasis on the classical technique. Can you talk a little bit about your school for
Sure.
a while? And if you two are students, feel free to chime in as well as
Sure.
what it means to you to have that classical
Sure.
sort of, I don't know if strict is the right word, but very focused technique.
Very focused, and it is strict. I mean, well, coming from Boston Ballet, that's all we learned. That's all. I mean, now I don't know what they do, but you know, that was it. Classical technique, and at the time, actually, in the '60s and the '70s, the only person that was really spreading ballet around the United States at that time was George Balanchine, who was the head of the New York City Ballet. So it was a little bit different technique. It was, for then, it was pretty modern compared to what the Russians were doing. And we didn't know here what the Russians were doing at that time until Nureyev or Baryshnikov came over, and then we're like, wow, you know, it's so different. But, so we're kind of based in traditional, classical American ballet. So, and why it's important is that there are certain ways that things are done, and no matter where you take class in the world, anywhere, the steps, the name of the steps are all the same. Even if you, and I say to a lot of the girls, because we have some Asian kids in the school, and I'm like, even if you go to, you know, home to visit your grandmother and you take a ballet class, the steps all have French names. They don't have, you know, they don't translate it. It doesn't translate. So that is what it is. So
A plie is a plie,
a plie
across
is a
the
plie
world.
no matter where you go, right?
Cool.
So that's what we teach because that's all we know.
Yeah.
And so we get, most of the kids start at the beginning with us. Very, very seldom do we get someone who's been at another school, maybe like a competition, more contemporary type of school. They do a little ballet, but if you don't start it from the beginning, you just never quite get it. And because it's such a disciplined art form, and you know, you have to hit your fifths, and they have to be perfect, and everything is this and this, that the students are of a certain mindset. They're very focused and very determined, don't you think? It's like, it's not like, oh, it's kind of a fifth. It is a fifth, and it must look like this. So they're very structured and disciplined, more so students. And that's why our school will never have hundreds of kids, because it's a very particular, you know, type of student.
A certain type of student, certain type of skill set, and a very particular focus. So are you two very focused then on, is it ballet, and do you do other activities, or are you ballet all the time, every day?
Ballet is like the only like sport I've ever done. Like I've been doing it for so long, and you just like I'm used to going to the studio again, like we have class.
Yeah, so
and-
she comes like 4 or 5 times a week. I mean, you know.
Nice. And you too, Clara?
I come 3 times a week.
Nice.
Well, counting rehearsals.
And do you love it? Is it a passion? Is it something you have to do? And tell me a little bit about that. Why is it so important to you?
Yeah. Well, I just love it because like it's so fun. It's almost like relaxing, which is kind of weird, but like you're working so hard and like you have to follow all the rules and like do exactly what your teacher says, but like it's so structured that like you know what's coming even though it's new combinations every time and you're learning new things, but it's like weird relaxing to be able to go and do ballet and just like have fun.
Because you're doing the same steps, just in different orders.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. Right.
This is how the teacher decides to put it in order. You know.
It's a recipe that tells a story, right? So can you talk a little bit too about how do you tell a story through these steps, and how does one little change the story for you?
So, for an example, if some of our teachers were trained in classical ballet, but sometimes they'll throw in a move that's Russian or whatever, and she'll say, do it in the Russian style. So we, like, if you change the style of it, it changes the story exactly with it.
Because as we should point out, the Nutcracker is told all through song and dance. There's no word, or maybe
No words.
No words.
1 or 2? No, none. None.
We
Except
use-
maybe my sister screaming at people on the stage when they're in the wrong place. So that's about
Oh,
it.
she'll love you saying that.
She would. Trust me. She would.
But so no words. So everything that you do on stage is trying to tell the story of the
Yeah,
Nutcracker.
and 99%, well, the whole entire party scene, so there's party scene, then the battle scene, then the snow scene. That's Act 1. Party scene is 99% acting. So there's not a lot of dancing. There's the children's dance that everybody knows that music to, which I'm not going to sing. But, you know, we have adults in there who have done it for years and years and years, which makes it great because they already know it by the time. Like, we've had the same grandma all along, so she knows how to do everything. But it's just, it's all acting. So when new kids come in, you have to say, come on, make it look like you're going to a party. And, so that's the hardest part, I think, because everybody knows the steps. It's just trying to get kids to act.
Yeah, not only, yes, I'm going to reiterate what you just
Yeah.
said, but not only do you have to do the right steps at the right time, but you also have to convey
Yep.
whatever is going on in the scene.
Yep.
Very
And
cool.
then like the battle scene, like when the mouse queen dies, the mice all have to cry. And so that's all,
Yeah, so you might have already answered this, but why is ballet the perfect way to tell this story? Why does it have to be ballet? Could
it doesn't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
Well, say more about that.
Yeah, well, one of my friends, not my friend, but someone that I knew from Boston Ballet back in the day, he does the Urban Nutcracker in Boston,
Oh, yeah.
and Tony Williams, and he's great. He has a great school and a great company, but he teaches it in a totally different style, not a classical style. You know, he's got hip hop and he integrates all different kinds of dance into it. So you don't necessarily have to do this version. This is just our version. And the original Boston Ballet version. And probably if you went to see New York City Ballet or maybe even Boston Ballet, it'd be pretty similar because they're ballet companies. But you can see a million different ones out there that people make different versions of it.
But I think that's what's so great about art, like we said, is it can be reinterpreted and mixed up.
yeah,
And the story is bubbling underneath all of that.
Well, I
and
think
we're
in the
putting-
Nutcracker, I think what's really bubbling underneath is the music of it. So many people recognize the Sugar Plum Fairy music of the Waltz of the Flowers or the Russian, they're on commercials. The children's dance and the
Yeah.
party scene. So you just watch commercials on television and you see all those songs. So it's really the music.
Yeah.
And it's how people perceive it or try to choreograph to it. This just happens to be how George Balanchine and probably Virginia Williams, who started Boston Ballet, saw the music and that's how it became.
So you've mentioned Balanchine a few times. Did you ever meet him? Have you ever?
No. Well, I was telling the story earlier that back in the early 60s, Boston Ballet was started in 1963, something like that. And at the time, George Balanchine, who came from Russia and started American ballet as we know it here, right? So like Clara said, there's Russians, they do it one way. Americans, a little different, a little faster, a little bit cooler, maybe, I don't know. But he was given the challenge by the Ford family to go around to different cities, I think it was Boston, maybe San Francisco, Philadelphia, to start regional ballet companies. Because at the time there was only 2 ballet companies in New York City.
Wow.
And so he went around and he like scouted these places and taught the directors how to teach like him, how to do things. And so that's the kind of ballet I know. So a lot of the ballets that Boston Ballet did at the beginning were Balanchine ballets. So I think if you went and saw New York City Ballet or Boston Ballet, but then you went to some other type of company, you'd understand the difference.
Yeah, that's it. Well, yeah, that's fascinating. And so are you saying too that if you went from the Boston Ballet to the Foxborough Classical Ballet Academy, would you see a difference there as well?
I don't think anybody going to see New York City Ballet would want to come see them. But
no, why not?
Would you see the difference?
Yeah.
Honestly, some of our kids who go to other schools occasionally, who are also from Boston Ballet or who go to see Boston Ballet Nutcracker, they come back and like, it almost looked exactly the same as the one we're doing here. By going to the Marilyn Rodman Center and paying a fraction of the price, you're seeing basically the same one.
Yeah.
You're not seeing, star ballerinas, but we do our best.
But still the Tchaikovsky music, the music's
music
all there.
yeah.
Awesome. So why is it important for Foxborough to have it? I mean, why do you think? I don't know if you two live in Foxborough.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so why is it important for you to have this in your hometown?
Well, it's great. I feel like it brings the community together so much, and we can all like be excited for Christmas and watch the Nutcracker and be like involved in the story together. And it's so fun for like, all the girls because we're all great friends, so we get to all do it together and have a great time. And then like everyone gets to come and see it, and it's really like a great production. It's a fun show.
Cool. Anything to add to that, Clara?
Nope.
She covered it.
Exactly that.
But, and I was born in Foxborough. I've been here 66 years, and my parents owned O'Reilly's Rexall drugstore, and they came in 1950. And to me, my school would not have been anywhere but Foxborough. I would not have done this anywhere else. It was for the town of Foxborough. And then when Marilyn Rodman Center started coming back to life, and it was like, this is like I have to say, the reason that I did open the school at Judy's was because the theater was right there. And that was my ultimate goal, to be able to use that theater and have
cool.
it, so, yeah.
Well, I'm personally thrilled that you do it here, because I love that we have that space and it's being used, and that there's such a variety of things that happen in
People
that
say
space.
to me all the time, why don't you go do it, go do it here or there, like even some of the high schools that have beautiful theaters.
Yeah.
No, I want it in Foxborough. I don't care how big the stage is. And honestly, the director, Catherine, over there has done such a great job. The stage floor used to be a disaster. A million things were a disaster. But now it's all gotten resolved. It's all like perfect. It's a great stage to dance on. Anybody that's not using it is crazy. And so we've watched that development over the years, and we're just so happy to be able to have it there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Clara and Connie, did you dance on the floor before it was all fixed up?
A couple of years ago, it had like potholes in it, and it was hard
horrible.
to dance on.
Very hard.
It's
People would
so
get their
nice
toe
now.
shoes stuck in the holes, and it was horrible. We're so excited about the floor.
Yeah.
And so now that it's all new and transformed, what is your favorite part of being a part of it? Do you like to watch it? Do you like to dance a certain part? Or is it just the community involvement? Tell me what's the best part.
I love the rehearsals. It's so fun.
That's good. You're a process person.
Yeah.
I love to hear that. Good. What makes the rehearsals fun?
You get to be with your friends, and I love dancing, so you get to dance.
They work so hard. My sister says all the time, those girls work so hard. And honestly, I always say, if at the beginning of the show, because I do the announcements before the show, if I could just say to the audience, if you had any idea how hard these girls work, these are hard dances. Snowflakes is like one of the hardest dances in ballet. It goes on for like 7 minutes, supersonic speed, and it is George Balanchine choreography, kind of, sort of. And then it's exhausting, right? And so they work so hard. It's amazing. It's not like they just get on and like a recital or something like that. They work so hard. Yeah. And we try to pack it in on the weekend, so they're like there for 10 hours doing snowflakes. It's amazing. And the other thing, not that I want to take over, but sorry, girls, but I just get excited. One thing that they say, and it was true for me at Boston Ballet, friends. Because when you get to be like, these girls are special, they're not like normal teenagers or anything, but when I was, and we'd have to drive all the way to Boston. My mother would pick me up at Foxborough High School and drive me to Boston. It's like, oh, you don't want to go, and kids drop out when they're in their teens and whatever. But because I had a group of friends to go to, it's like I couldn't wait to get there just to be with my friends. Yeah. And that helps the school too. It helps the school grow because, especially in Nutcracker, they become so bonded. And so it's like, then they're more likely to stay as students into the next year because, Nutcracker's coming, and every January I'm like, I'm not going to do it again. And every August they're like, when do we start? I'm like, I guess I'll do it. So, so that's an important part too, from my perspective, is to watch them all bond. I mean, it's amazing to see these kids. I mean, amazing.
I think for my money, there's something to be said about working toward a common goal, and it's a public goal. Like everyone, people are paying to come and see this thing that you've worked on with your friends.
Absolutely.
Cool. Kynie, did you have a different answer for that? What's your favorite part?
I just love seeing all the dancers progress. Like you go to the first rehearsal and you're like, this is never gonna get there. And then the last rehearsal, you're like, it looks so good. How did we get from here to here?
We have 2 more weeks and it looks so great. Yesterday was fabulous. It was so good.
Yeah, at a certain point you're like, okay, we could put it on the stage. It wouldn't be great, but like it starts to get like stage ready. And then you come into the theater and you put on the costumes and you do it and you're like, oh. Yeah. Just like seeing the whole process is amazing.
Yeah, well, sometimes we feel get a little over-rehearsed too and complacent, but that's so true. It's like the first couple and you go, oh, we're never going to be able to do this. And especially since a lot of the kids graduated last year, our older kids, so we're basically starting from scratch, and it's like, they were special. These dancers that were doing snowflakes in past years had been doing it for years. So you'd go into the first rehearsal, they already knew it. So this was like a whole new group of people, and so it was like, it's come a long way in a month.
And so you had auditions this year. Do you have auditions every year? How could people get involved next year?
Yeah, actually what we did this year is because we had lost so many kids, I said to the theater, I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't have enough kids. I said, but if we could work together with the theater and open up the auditions to other schools in the area, which is what we did. And now we have more kids than we've ever had in our show from other schools.
Great.
So I'm sure we'll do that going forward. So we have auditions, and this year they were at the theater, and I'm sure next year we'll probably do the same thing.
Great. Yeah. And no experience required, or 3 years?
I wouldn't say no, because I could fill those parts pretty easy. But the kids we have now are from other schools around, capable dancers, and they don't necessarily know classical ballet, but they know other kinds of dance, and we make it work. And they seem pretty excited about it too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So can you tell us how to get tickets and when are the dates again?
Yep, the show is December 16th at 1 and 4, and December 17th at 1 and 4.
Great. And
you can get tickets through the Marilyn Rodman website. If you just click on the picture of one of the snowflakes with Mia, just click on that, it will take you to the link to get the tickets. And then you can also get them at the box office on certain days. I'm not sure what days those are. So that's the easiest way to do it.
Perfect. All right. Well, we'll look for you too. Is it okay to say hi afterwards? If
Please do.
All right.
Yeah. At the end of the show, I open the curtains instead of them being like prima donnas or anything. We just open the curtain and all the audience comes up and taking pictures and everything. So it's pretty exciting.
Great. Well, we will look for you on the 16th and 17th of December. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for dedicating your time here and for the wonderful production that you do over at the Rodman Center. We really appreciate it. That's it. Anything else that we didn't cover that we need to get in really quick?
We covered a lot.
Awesome.
Good.
You guys were great. So I just want to say thank you all for tuning in today. My name is Jared Craig. I'm your host. I was here with Eva Riley-Ketty, Clara Duplessis, and her sister, Kynie Duplessis. And we were thrilled to have you. A few people I want to thank. I want to thank Michael Weber, our executive director, Paul Beck, our director, Jury Love, our producer, and Fanny Mizerambe, our editor. And thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.